Hello, hello, Bermuda here. I hope you're well. All right, just bear with me a second. I'm getting an echo here, some feedback. I was hoping to get real world weather, but it doesn't look like that here. Sorry, just bear with me. Got a slight technical problem with the audio. This was working okay last week. I'm not sure what's going on. Let's have a look. Okay. I'm not sure whether that's fixed the problem. No, it hasn't. Test 1 2 3. Okay. If you are watching the stream, please say hi, and then I know I'm not on my own. Sorry, I've got some feedback. I think it's coming from my speakers. Just bear with me. Okay, that's frustrating. I thought I'd got all the sound engineering stuff sorted out, but clearly not. I think I know what to do. Just bear with me. So I'm just going to change the weather settings here because a beautiful day in the UK and something is clearly wrong with this flight. So just bear with us. I'll get the webcam set up in a second. Should be a nice blue sky. Okay, I've disabled the sound in my browser, so hopefully I won't get an echo. Perfect. Okay. Okay, so we can carry on with the stream. This weather is rather funny, so it shouldn't be like this. And yeah, I've got live weather settings. First of all, let's get the webcam working. Don't have to do this every time. There we go. There we go. Okay. Let's just move this along a bit. All right. Sorry, let me just have a bit of a move around here. Right, of course I've messed it up, haven't I? All right, let's put it back to how it was. Sorry about this. New to streaming and all that. There we go. Hi, I'm Bermuda. And really need to get this weather sorted out. Let's stop the technically live weather, but I don't know where it's getting its weather from because it's not like that here. All right, let's turn that off. So how do I get live weather in the game? This is trip down memory lane. Weather. Okay. Nope. Don't tell me I've got to jump out and come back in. Okay. You know what? Let's go with it. Let's just go with it. Let me get the real weather back up. Sorry about this. I'll give myself 30 minutes to set the stream up in terms of audio and all the settings, and still not enough. Oh well, it's all part of the fun, isn't it? Okay, so yes, okay. It's just told me if I wanted to do it in flight sim, I had to jump out to the main menu, and I don't want to do that. Right, let's get the plane started. What we're going to do here today is we're going to have a bit of a flight in Flight Sim 2020. I've got to go and try and land in a field. And looking at the weather, that's really going to present me a challenge, I think. It should have been clear skies. Oh, it's brightening up a little bit. And then once we've had this flight and had a bit of fun, we're going to have a session on ARMA III. And that should be fun as well, because I made a total mess of the boot camp and all the training as a new to that game. Anyway, first things first, please hope you got lots of water or other liquids. It's really hot, so look after yourselves. Okay. All right, so I've got the route programmed into navmap, little navmap. I can show you that. Let's have a look. I must remember to turn back to the main screen. So let me just zoom in here. So we're at Cardiff, Echo Golf Foxtrot. If you are going to join me for a flight, let me know in the chat and I'll look out for you. So we're going to head southwest. We're going to have a look around this area here, and we're going to try and land in a suitable field there. Now, I haven't flown that sort of area at that level of detail, so it's going to be interesting to see whether I can land in the field given the weather safely. Obviously safety first, and obviously if I do manage to land, I haven't damaged the aircraft, and B, I need to be able to safely take off and return to Cardiff airfield. I have set the sim time to 9 o'clock in the morning. So let's get started. Okay. As I've said in previous videos, in the sim, this is kind of my plane. No one else really flies it. So in terms of condition, it's all good. But I will do a kind of a try to do as good as a checklist as I can. Please accept my apologies if the stream is stuttering a bit. It's really hot here. And also this is the payware version of Cardiff, so it may look different to what you're used to if you've ever flown in or out of this airfield. Okay, we have got a plane coming in to land. Nice big jet there. Okay. If I'm correct, that's probably a livery that I don't have. That's why the plane has appeared as a blank canvas, basically. I will have a walk through this airfield one day. It looks fascinating. What's happening here? Somebody taking off from the other way. Okay, Ryanair flight. Nice takeoff. What I love about Cardiff is it really is a nice runway. Lots of runway length, so even the big jets don't have a problem. Okay, with enough said, let's get back in the plane. Let's fire her up and let's go for a flight. Battery on. Let's jump down to the panel here. Nav lights on, beacon on. One thing I do have to do is I am doing this as part of On Air. So sorry, just bear with me. I need it to track my flight. We're going to have full fuel. If you haven't used On Air or you don't know what On Air company is, it's a third-party software that's kind of a career kind of simulator. So you can give yourself jobs, set up companies, virtual airlines. Really is very good. I've been using it for a few months now. I really enjoy it. It's it gives an extra level of immersion to flight sim. It gives you a sense of purpose. I love flying with friends and that, but On Air is really good to kind of give yourself those extra challenges of running an airline company, or even just a small independent company. Right. Okay. There we go. You saw the plane just dip a little bit. so I've got some cargo on board. Okay. All right. So apologies if anybody was trying to watch me on Kick. I seem to have a technical problem with my multi-streaming setup. So at the moment I'm only on YouTube and Twitch. I've only just literally found that out 30-40 minutes ago. Okay, so battery on, nav beacon on. I'm going to feather the propeller and give full mixture. So as you can see there, 54 gallons of fuel on board, that's full. We've got it currently selecting left wing tank. Okay, so we can do a check that nobody's near the plane. That ground crew member is stood at a safe distance. So we can start the plane. Checked all the wing surfaces and the flight controls, all's good. Okay, so all is good there. Okay, so let's get the alternator working so we don't give ourselves a flat battery. And let's turn the avionics on. So the plan is to fly fully manually VFR. I'm not going to use air traffic control. Apologies, that breaks the immersion a little bit. This computer is running very hot at the moment, so I just want to reduce the load on it. And to be honest, I need to get better at ATC. I do have same intentions. So, okay, so let's set the barometric pressure and the gyro drift. Let's make sure they're all good. Okay. As you can see there from that small general aviation plane that flew by, busy airfield. Okay, even though I'm not using transponder, I just kind of get into the habit of setting it. And I've set an altimeter setting for the autopilot just in case I get into workload overload and I need to just put it, or there's a technical problem, I need to put the plane on autopilot. Sorry for all the rabbiting on. I do kind of like to talk a little bit just to kind of interact during the live stream. I think it's nothing worse than me just going silent for 20 minutes. But please do feel free to say hi in the chat. Let me know where you're from. I will read all the chat messages throughout the flight. Even if it takes a few minutes to get to them, please bear with us. Okay, so everything looks okay. Fuel is reading full. Oil temperatures in the green and the pressure. Cylinder head temperature as we give it a little run up here. We should see that move. Okay, yeah, all looks fine. I probably should have put the prop to full. I'm happy with all those readings. Okay, let's we will taxi. So the wind is coming from 271 at 1 knots, very calm on the ground. So we'll take off from runway 300. Okay, that's a really nice approach in if you're arriving 30, because you come out over the water, so it always just seems to be more challenging than it probably is. Okay, so I do have a head tracker on. I will lock it occasionally if I need to look at the other screen. You're getting seasickness from watching the stream. So parking brake off, prop to full. I do like to put the flaps down to 10 degrees here. Seems to be the done thing. Don't want to get all the way to the runway and realise there's a technical problem and the flaps won't extend. Okay, so taxi lights on. And let's taxi out. So I'm mindful here that there is traffic, seems to be using both runways. So what I'm going to do is turn around here and we can so there's the plane there that's just taxied in. Hope they had a good flight. This always feels a bit tight here to come out this parking area. I do want to pick up the taxiway. Let's just see the side of here. Ah, helicopter. Very nice. Let me just jump to external view just to put my mind at rest that I can fit through there. Well, I think that's the, is it the Airbus H145? Or is that the large of it, the next size up, is that the 160? Not too sure. If you do know, let me know. That is very tight. I think I've created myself a bit of a problem here. Probably would get a few remarks from other pilots that I didn't give myself much manoeuvring room there. That's, yeah, that was a bit naughty, I think, of me to go there. Let's get back in the plane. Right, so we're going to go to the right here. We're going to cross the active runway, so I want to be very careful about this. Alright, so if you have just joined us, please say hi in the chat. Let me know who you are, where you're from. Always good to share the live stream with other simmers and live stream viewers. Let me know if you're in the sim as well. Okay, so we're just coming up to the active runway. Let's just put the head tracker on. What I find funny about this plane is I have to really crouch down to kind of look out the windows. It may be the way I've set my camera view up, but as you can see there, I'm having to really crouch down, and that doesn't obviously portray, I guess, the real nature of this plane. I'm not a real world pilot, so you'll have to forgive me if I do anything wrong, and I guarantee I probably am going to do lots of things wrong. Cowl flaps are open. That's always something I forget to do, so I'll make a mental note. Alright, crossing the active runway. It's a really misrepresentation of the weather here. I'm based in the middle part of the UK and it looks nothing like this. It's blue sky, a few clouds, very windy though. So yeah, the sim is showing 7 knots from 271 degrees. That's probably about right, but it is really gusty. So I'm really mindful that hand flying this plane today, probably in the real world I wouldn't be doing this flight just due to the bad weather, the wind. So let's see how it kind of compares to the sim. So I'd expect some quite gusty turbulence, especially if we have some terrain where there's some kind of meteorological changes, you know, ridge lift and stuff. Again, not a real world pilot, so, but I do know from gliding in the sim, you get a lot of thermals and stuff, and this is quite a, this route's got a lot of varying terrain, so we should experience some interesting weather conditions today. I wish the sky would brighten up a little bit though. Okay. So if you have just joined and I'm watching the stream, hi, I'm Bermuda. If you haven't flown with me before, right, welcome. It's always great to fly with new simmers, new people to the channel, as well as people who've been here before, so hi. I'm new to streaming, so if you can support my channel by following me on Kick and Twitch, and like, subscribe and ring the bell on YouTube, that would be really appreciated. I do have a buy me a coffee, the link is in the description. I drink a lot of coffee, so if you could support me and buy me a coffee, that would be really, really decent of you, really nice, and I'd really appreciate that. Okay, so this is the paid version of Cardiff Airport, International Airport. Sorry Cardiff for downplaying you there. Echo Golf Foxtrot Foxtrot. So as you can see from the stream, there are some nice animations here. So I really like this airfield, and I am going to take quite a walk around it one day with the kind of the drone cam. Okay, so let's just have a quick check. Temperatures and pressures all look good. Fuel is good. Let's put our landing lights and strobe on in a second. Fuel pump needs to go on. We're going to close the cowl flaps and mixture to full. I'm just going to pull back a little bit on the prop. The reason being is I know this plane quite well, and it kind of over torques it. So as you can see from the RPM, I just want to hit 2500 RPM. I don't really want to go past that. I don't need to. I'm not fully loaded with weight or passengers today, so I think it's a bit aggressive on the engine if I use full prop, sorry. Flaps are set, so I will change the heading bug just, I think we're at 297, about there, just in case I get into some nasty crosswind and I just need to put the autopilot on. So we have the left fuel tank selected, everything looks good, no nasty noises, apart from me chatting too much maybe. Okay, let's take off. Okay, not aware of any inbound traffic on final. Okay, landing lights on, strobe on. And normally I would turn the taxi lights off, but I've kind of learned that you need to keep that on on Air Company anyway. They kind of mark you down if you don't. Okay, let's power up. So trim should be good for takeoff. Okay, I can feel a little bit of crosswind. So we've got rudder authority. Speed is alive. Oh, it's a little bit messy. A little bit messy. Okay. Okay, I'm going to bring the flaps up. Just going trim as we head down the line of the runway. Okay. So as I predicted, there is a little bit of wind today, and you can see there we're already getting into haze, so probably not the best attempt at a VFR flight. We're at 400 feet and already we got visibility issues. Not the best time to be trying to land in a field from some coordinates that I have. Okay, so I'm going to turn and we're going to head south now. So the plane feels pretty good, pretty in trim. I'm just going to give a little bit more prop there. There we go. I'll turn the fuel pump off. I've not done myself any favours here by using live weather. Let's bring the head tracker back on. I'm going to try and keep it at about 1,000 feet. Okay. You can see we're already over water. Okay, so I do have a bit of a problem here. This is not a good VFR flight. So, based on the weather, pretty poor decision of mine to actually take off. We're actually flying in IMC, I think is the correct terminology. Instrument meteorological conditions, is it? Please correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, so on the last screen, Steve, who's a regular viewer to the channel, and I really appreciate his input over my streaming sessions, especially regarding audio levels, etc. And his help has been priceless. Did tell me what are the conditions for VFR flying over urban areas. Okay. I'm just mindful here, we are definitely flying in not in VFR conditions, so I may need to return to the airfield because I can't really even see the ground here. I'm pretty happy flying the plane in terms of trying to keep it level, but I'm mindful also that it's extremely windy. And we're at 12 knots from 269, so we do have a crosswind. Okay, and actually, I'm off course already. So lost my situational awareness. And as you can see, I'm flying quite low, and we've got like chimneys down below. So I am causing myself some real problems here. I think the safest thing to do is actually return back to Cardiff, and we can wait obviously in the sim. Let's set some good weather. Okay, so I'm going to return back to Cardiff. That is the most sensible thing to do. Now, I am mindful we have a lot of full fuel on board. Okay, so we're going to land on runway 30. Okay, I'm watching my speed here. Definitely don't want to get into a stall situation. So to my left, there's the coastline. Obviously, I need to give a bit of distance. proper lineup for the runway. Okay. I'll be totally honest with you, it's a little bit nervous. Okay. Okay, we have a problem. Ah! No, 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 no. Okay. All right. That was not fun at all. Not fun at all. So apologies if you just see me get into a stall. That is not what I wanted to do. And the fact that I recovered from that was just pure luck. That was nothing to do with skill. So as you probably saw from the instruments there, I allowed the plane to lose too much speed. And I was more focused on navigation. So that's quite an interesting lesson to myself. First of all, I shouldn't have even took off. Woo! Hey, I know this is only a sim, but gee, my pulse went up a little bit there. That's the first time in a long time that I've got into some bother there. Okay, so what I'm going to do, let's get the flaps down because we're approaching our turning point to approach the runway. Okay, so flaps down. Let's put the fuel pump on, just in case we have to do a missed approach. I shouldn't really switch the fuel tanks here. We haven't used that much. Okay, turning on to finals now. The head tracker doesn't seem to be working actually, so it's a bit disappointing. That's something I can fix. Okay, so at least I do have visual with the ground. And we should just see the runway to our left. There it is. So I can come back and line up quite nicely with that. Okay, watching my airspeed and my altitude. Definitely don't want to stall it again. Okay. This plane turns very well, so I'm not too bothered that I haven't lined up before this. So treat this as a short final. As I said earlier, the approach here is just fantastic, right over the coast. There we go. At least I've got good visual now. Okay, the PAPI lights say I'm too low. Let's bring the speed down now. What's interesting is you can see the plane buffeting there, and it does do that every time, because I think the I think the weather here is very changeable, especially as you come over the water, over the land. Right, let's try to make a better example of my air person skills by trying to get a good landing. Okay. Gee, that wasn't the best landing either. Okay. Okay, so let's turn left here. Whew. Okay, my pulse has returned to normal after stalling the plane and nearly becoming part of the water feature. So what I will do here is just take a couple of minutes to set this back up with better weather and kind of reflect my real world local weather here. Not sure anybody's watching the stream, so if you are, please let me know, but it looks like nobody is. Let's turn the fuel pump off. Cowl flaps open. Okay. Looks like we have somebody spamming the chat. Okay. Please don't do that. Okay, so that's the first time I've had to deal with a spammer. Alright, let's get back to the important things. Setting this plane up for another flight. Alright, cowl flaps are open. Fuel pump is off. Retract the flaps. What I'll do is I'll just park in a generic space. I can even park on the grass here. General aviation. I'm sure the tower won't mind. Need to find out why the head tracker isn't working. I do want to get this flight done because I've been looking forward to it all week. Okay, so I'm just going to park up here on the left. Looks perfectly acceptable. And I do have to set the flight up again, I think, to choose the weather. Okay, sorry, that was quite well, it wasn't uneventful from my point of view. Because, obviously, I nearly had an incident there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is end the flight. Okay. I'll pick that back up in a minute. Right, let's turn the engine off. Pull the mixture. Normally I cut the fuel first. Lights off. Yeah, I don't need to look at the stats because I wasn't happy with, I wasn't proud of myself on that flight. Getting myself into a spot of bother there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is jump out of the plane. I will be back in a few minutes. So let me just put a I'll be right back. Hello, hello, welcome back. So I've set the flight up for better weather this time. I've waited. If you did watch the last flight, I was very lucky to get back to the airfield because of the deteriorating weather. So we're going to have another go. We're going to fly down to some coordinates and see if we can land in a field. If you are joining me for the flight, please let me know. All the details were in the description, but it's going to be Cardiff International Airfield, which is code Echo Golf Foxtrot Foxtrot. And it's 9 o'clock in the morning. And as you can see, the weather is much better than it was when I attempted this flight previously. The less said about that flight, the better, to be honest. Okay, so we are flying VFR. We're going to take her up to about 1,000 feet, between 1,000 and 2,000 feet. Okay, I am mindful that it is quite windy, so we will allow for that. So let's get the plane started. As I've said before, in the sim, I'm the only person that really flies this plane. So I've done all the walk around externally. So we're going to start her up. I kind of use my mental checklist to do this, my memory items. So we're going to get the battery on, our nav and beacon on. So let's bring up that view better. There we go, nav and beacon on. Okay. So I'm going to feather the prop, full mixture, cowl flaps open. Everything looks good. We got full fuel, even though it's a relatively short flight. Let's just check outside for a clear prop area. Yeah, all is good. Safe to start the engine. Okay, so if you haven't flown with me before, hi, I'm Bermuda, and based in the UK, and this is a really nice airfield here at Cardiff International. It's only got one runway, but it does serve all aircraft types, from small general aviation planes like this up to big jets, and you can just see there in the distance a big jet taking off. See if we can there you go, through the binoculars. So it is a really nice airfield that can cope with all aircraft types. Okay, if you haven't flown with me before, again, hello, I'm Bermuda. Really good to have new people watching the stream and flying with me. As a new channel, if you can follow me, like, subscribe, ring the bell, I would really appreciate that. If you want to go one step further and buy me a coffee, the link is in the description. I drink a lot of coffee, so that would be appreciated. Okay, right, I really should have got the alternator on. Last thing I want to do is drain the battery. Let's get the avionics on. So this plane does have a left and right tank, so at the moment it's set to left, so I tend to change it over every kind of 30 minutes of flight. When it's at cruise altitude, which we're not really going to be today, we're flying VFR. This thing really is economical on the fuel. Okay, so on the autopilot computer, I am going to set the altitude to 2,000 feet just in case I get work overload and I have to switch on the autopilot, or if we get into some bad weather, or if there's a technical problem. We don't need transponder, but I kind of use a generic code just in case. Although actually I think it is good practice to transmit transponder data, so I need to read up actually on the protocols for that. Not a real world pilot, so I'm always learning about the right way to do things, and normally I learn the right way to do things from doing things the wrong way, and then having to read up on it, or some kind simmer or real world pilot tells me you're not doing that right, so I will gladly listen and take it all on board. Okay, so we can get the taxi lights on. As you can see, this is a round trip, although we are going to try and land at some coordinates that I have. Okay, so we're ready to taxi. I know this airfield quite well, so active runway is 30 and the wind is 1 knot from 271 degrees. I am very respectful that the weather is, as in real life, very changeable at the moment. Okay, so the prop, I'm just going to pull it back a little bit. Having flown this plane a few times, I want to get the RPMs, as you can see there on the dial, just to the right of the FMC, Flight Management Computer. That's probably the wrong term actually. It's more of just a GPS and autopilot unit. I want it not to go really past 2500 RPM. That's kind of over torque the engine. So we're not going to overstress the engine today. So I've just pulled the prop back a little bit. Whoops, what's happened there? Nope, that's better. Okay, let's taxi. Cowl flaps open, parking brake off. So we are going to cross the active runway in a minute to taxi and hold short if there is any other traffic. Not sure if I've said this already, so apologies if I have. This is the payware version of Cardiff, so my computer is a couple of years old and it's kind of struggling a little bit, so apologies if you see any stuttering in the scenery and me, because I'm trying not to mess this up. Okay, so we can go left here. Hi, if you are watching the stream, please say hi in the chat and I'll say hi back. Please let us know who you are, where you're from. That would be great. Always good to know who I'm streaming with and flying with. If you have just joined, I'm Bermuda. If you haven't flown with me before, welcome to the channel and the stream. If you have flown with me before, welcome back. Okay. Mindful that I don't want to taxi too fast and get into trouble with the tower controller. Unfortunately, I'm not using air traffic control today. I do have, say, intentions. I got to be honest, having to do air traffic control as well as streaming and making sure everything is fine at a technical level, that's a bit beyond my capabilities at the minute, to be totally honest with you. And I'll always be honest. I'll never try and exaggerate my capabilities. Okay, so mindful this is an active runway. So I do have the head tracker. Let me switch it on and see whether it's working. It did seem to play up a short while ago. There we go. Adds to another level of immersion. Problem is, and maybe if you have flown this plane before yourself, I have to seem to get into a really weird position to be able to look out of the windows. Now that's probably just the way that I've set the camera view. This is the Cessna 207 Stationair. Maybe not a plane you've flown yourself, so please let me know. So we are crossing the runway. I did look to see if it was all clear, and it seemed to be. Quite a lot of British Airways planes here. I'm assuming that's representative of real life. I'm not a plane expert, and I'm kind of really open and honest in saying that. So for instance, that plane ahead of me, I have no idea what that is. Is that an Airbus A320, A310 I guess? Please correct me if I'm wrong. Let me just turn the... I'm just mindful here, I don't want you feeling seasick with me keep looking left and right. I do like this airfield. Its location in the South Wales coastline makes for some really challenging approaches. And as you can see, being the paid version, the level of detail is amazing. I haven't really bought scenery as such. I've got the Birmingham airfield as well, Echo Golf Bravo Bravo. Sorry, I'm just going to lock the head tracker for the minute. There we go, just while I'm on taxi. Once we're airborne, I can bring it back online. Okay, so I've extended the flaps to 10 degrees for takeoff. I will adjust the pitch trim in a minute. So if you wasn't with me 45 minutes ago, the weather was not realistic of real world. I'm not quite sure what had happened, but it definitely wasn't conducive for a good, safe VFR flight. But guess what? I went and took off anyway, and I ended up getting into a real problem and had to return back to the airfield. And I only just made it. I got into some real problems. I actually entered into a stall. And yeah, I really didn't make the best decision in taking off. So I've waited for the weather to be better, and here we are. So, okay. It's looking a lot better. The wind is really favourable. It's not even registering. Yeah, it's 1 knot from 271 degrees. So we're using the best runway for takeoff here. Okay. I'll just do a quick brake check. Brakes are good. Alright, temperatures and pressures good, fuel is good. Okay, we'll close the cowl flaps now. Just check flaps extended. We're going to put the fuel pump on there. Little yellow switch in the bottom left. Okay, let's just hold short here. Not aware of anybody in the pattern or on final, so we can head straight out. Landing strobe light on. I'll turn the taxi light off in a second. Engine sounds good. Fuel flow is good. Obviously in the sim, I virtually checked the fuel condition, no contamination. Okay, let's roll. Throttle to full. Right, pitch trim. I'm happy with the trim setting. Speed is alive. Wasn't the best takeoff there. Okay, let's head runway heading in case I need to. Do a go around, but everything looks okay. Don't need to abort the takeoff. We have positive rate, so flaps up there. Okay, let's just trim and stabilise a bit. As I say, I'm going to try and hand fly this today. Okay, let's just trim that a little bit better. Okay, there we are, hands off. Okay, we can bring the head tracker back on. There we go, head tracker's on so we can enjoy the scenery. I'm going to try and keep it at about 1,000 feet. So we need to head south now. We're going to head down towards Devon. Let's just check temperatures and pressures. T's and P's, I think the pro pilots say. All looks good. Voltage all looks good. Right, now we're airborne. I can turn the fuel pump off. Let's be eco-friendly and wallet-friendly. I'm sure aviation fuel is not cheap. Okay, so we've just passed through 1,000 feet. My bad, one thing I didn't do was check the barometric pressure, so we'll do that now. Not sure what that is down there. It's pretty industrious, whatever it is. If you know South Wales well and you know what that is, please tell me. Right, watching the speed, I want to hold it around 100, 120 knots. Okay. We're kind of heading due south. We'll turn southwest in a minute once we've gone feet dry. It's a real optical illusion for me. Looking at the water, I kind of lose all sense of altitude. I could be 50 feet over the water, I could be 500, but we're actually just over 1,000. So without looking at the instruments, it really does mess with my situational awareness there. So just looking at my dials there, I was in a descent actually. My vertical speed dropped to 400 feet per minute descent. That's not what I want to do. I want to try and keep it level. And I've just noticed my speed has increased as well. So you can see already I'm getting overloaded with the workload. Trying to keep the plane simply just straight and level. And on a southerly heading. And this is why I like hand flying. It kind of brings me back to not necessarily the basics of flying a plane, but not far off. You know, scanning all the dials effectively. Is a real problem for me sometimes. So, and obviously you've got to be looking around you, making sure you're not causing any issues for any other aircraft. Interesting. Okay, I'm going to pull back on the mixture a little. Oh no, actually, see, there's another problem. I was going to pull back on the mixture, but actually we're only using 11 gallons per hour, so don't need to, and my altitude has dropped to just over 500 feet. Interesting. I'm enjoying this because it kind of refreshes my skills and lack of skills. So just trying to keep a plane level, not over stressing the engine or the airframe. And as you can see, just trying to keep the plane from kind of oscillating or getting into, is it pilot-induced oscillations, where you're constantly flying behind the plane. So I'm reacting to what the plane's doing. You know, it's descending, so I pull back the nose or try and pitch up. Then you go into a climb, and then you try and react by pitching down, nose down, reducing the throttle, or a combination of all of those, and you kind of go into a roller coaster ride, which isn't good for the plane, you, or your passengers. Thankfully, we're not carrying any passengers today, but I'm sure they'd be reaching for the sick bag if they were on board with me. So, okay, please like, subscribe, and follow me. I'd really appreciate that as a new streaming channel. I am having some technical issues with my multi-streaming. If I'm correct, this is going out to YouTube and Twitch, but for some reason the Kick stream isn't working. But that's something I need to work out. So if you were planning on watching me on Kick, I do apologise. I will get that fixed. Okay, so we're at 400 feet. Now, interestingly, again, looking at the water, I couldn't tell you that I was at 400 feet. So, and it's only because I'm looking at the horizon land that I'm kind of getting some kind of visual information of my altitude there. And I'm down to 300 feet now. So, okay. So I'm going to turn just west slightly. Just 45 degrees. So we head down towards Devon. So the plan is to approach the coordinates that I've got, and that's going to be a bit of a task in itself for me. I do use a little nav map, which I don't think is cheating. It'd be kind of the same as having some GPS, and obviously the one here in the plane, but I haven't programmed those coordinates into the flight computer here. Okay, I'll just straighten up. So we're going to fly over this ridge. Now, interestingly, we're probably going to get some thermals here. So we may get some slight buffeting. It'll be interesting to see whether we experience that. So I'm mindful that I do want to be safely over the top of these. I'm just going to give a bit more throttle so we can get some more lift. There we go. As you can see, we're climbing just over 500 feet per minute. What I don't want to do is my speed to drop and we get into a stall. Obviously, I'm respectful of all the residences down there. That's good. We're looking good. So if you are able to comment in the chat, please let us know what planes you fly in the sim, if you do fly in the sim at all. I don't want to make the assumption that because you're watching this you do fly in the sim. Maybe you're thinking about it and you're just looking at what the sim can do. So this is Flight Sim 2020. I haven't upgraded to 24 yet. I will do. To be honest, I really enjoy flying this version. It's really stable now. Very rarely does it crash. And all the planes and the third-party plugins that I've got work really well. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of come over to the left 10-20 degrees. Ah, hello Steve, welcome. No flying, both feet firmly on the ground. Okay. Given the weather that I had in the previous flight, best place to have been, feet firmly on the ground. That's, gotta be honest, it's beautiful up here today. Just watching my vertical speed there, it went a bit too high, to be honest, and that's I can feel it on the plane. That's the thermal lift we were talking about earlier, because of the temperature here and the terrain. And got to be careful again, my airspeed crept up quite dramatically there. My air skills today are pretty lacking. And we've climbed to nearly 2,000 feet. So me wanting to go over that ridge line a couple of minutes ago kind of overdid it a little bit. So, okay, need to come back to the left. Gone a little bit off course. Need to be going southwest. So again, that's really a good example of how easy you can get involved in fighting the plane. Not fighting the plane, that's probably the wrong word, but focused on bringing the plane back into stability in terms of airspeed and altitude. And something gets overlooked, and for me it was navigation. So I was drifting off course whilst I was more focused on the airspeed and altitude. So the other thing as well is in this plane, fuel tanks are in the left and right. There are 2 fuel tanks. What I don't want to do is make the plane heavier on one side. So as you can see, we've got 50.2 gallons of fuel. And I've purely been taken from the left wing. So I'm going to switch over to the right wing now. There you go. We want to try and keep the plane as balanced as possible. Otherwise it will want to tip the heavier wing. Okay, so again, I think I'm still going too far west. Let's bring it back. Steve, you kindly helped me on the last session with some information about VFR flight rules over populated areas, and that was a really good. I'm just going to bring it up and I'll read it out because I need to learn this. Plane is hopefully going to stabilize. I'll hold it at about 2,000 feet for the minute whilst I just bring up this information that you kindly supplied in our last flight. Okay. Let me just check. Okay. Bit naughty me looking at my electronic devices while I'm flying solo. Okay, here we go. So I'll read this out because if you are watching this, really good information. So the question was about VFR flight rules over populated areas. And the ruling is, for visual flight rules, VFR, over built-up areas, the minimum altitude is generally 1,000 feet above the highest obstacle within a 2,000 foot radius of the aircraft. And that's fascinating. I really you know, like the very clearly defined rule there. So this means the aircraft must be 1,000 feet above the tallest building or structure in that area. So that's the 2,000 foot radius. Over uncongested areas, the minimum altitude is typically 500 feet above ground or water. And a congested area is defined as cities, towns, settlements and gatherings of more than 1,000 people. Minimal altitude, as just detailed, VFR flights must maintain minimum altitude 1,000 feet above the highest obstacle within a 2,000 foot radius. So I guess it's really up to the pilot to know the terrain on the route they want to take. I think it's no excuse to fly a plane and kind of breach that altitude restriction. In some cases, specific regulations or permissions may allow for deviations from these minimum altitudes, obviously such as takeoff, landing, or with permission from the relevant authority. So yeah, thanks Steve for providing that in the last session. I learned something there. That was, and I'm sure I do break that rule in my simming, so it's something that I can try to follow to add to the realism and the immersion. Okay, so we're at 2,000 feet. I want to get down to about 1,000. Obviously, I'm mindful of that ruling. But as you can see here, the terrain looks pretty good. So I'm just eased back on the throttle a little bit. My vertical speed dropped to 1,000 feet per minute descent there. Now normally I'd say, oh, that's too much, and I'd either pull back on the nose or put too much power on again. Well, of course, then you start getting into that kind of pilot-induced oscillation that I spoke about earlier. And you start flying behind the plane, not in front of it. And obviously that can cause lots of problems, even if it's just a very nauseating flight experience. It doesn't do the plane much good in the engine to keep doing that. Okay, so I'm just going to bring the plane back to about 210 degrees on the heading. Speed is good. Temperatures and pressures, let's have a look. Everything's good. Fuel, now as you can see there on the fuel, the left tank is just above 3/4 and the right tank is just below full. So at the moment the right wing is heavier, and that can cause a problem in terms of trying to keep a wing level flight, because the plane wants to dip towards the heaviest wing. Okay, 1,500 feet, still in a slight descent. And you can see a bit of buffet in there, so the wind is 2 knots from 271 degrees. Pretty manageable, but it is fluctuating, so it's just jumped between 4 and 5 degrees, and it is changeable in direction as well. So I'm constantly monitoring the weather, and actually the feel on the plane. If it suddenly starts buffeting, then there's clearly a reason why. So we're still in a descent. I don't want to get below 1,000 feet. So adjust my trim, so you can see the trim wheel there. Let me just zoom in on that for you. So you can see the trim wheel there as I adjust the pitch trim. And obviously that, if I bring the yoke back, that should be on there, and I think there it is on the left. You can see highlighted there, that should be the pitch trim. I think the red button, is that the go around button? I'm not sure actually. I think the right button there would be your push to talk. Watching my altitude there, so again slight descent vertical speed, so I'm just going to pitch trim up a little bit. We've got enough speed there. Right, Sorry, Steve, I missed your message there. I assumed that would apply to structures like radio masts. Yeah, interesting topic that, isn't it? Because I think it's any structure, like chimneys, radio masts. I know in London, helicopters and planes coming in and out of the airfields like London City, they've got a very strict flight path. So, and I know if it's, correct me if I'm wrong, if a radio mast or a chimney is over 150 feet high, they have to have illuminated red lights. Because sadly, I think in the past, there have been incidents where trains have been hit by helicopters or planes. I think it's some very strict ruling on that. But yeah, great question. I'm sure it's 150 feet. Having climbed up to, cranes myself, 150 feet off the ground is pretty high. It's pretty high. So, and I think in built-up areas, you would definitely want that illuminated at night. Okay. So, aircraft feels good. Speeds at around 120. Again, just a bit disappointed with myself that I seem to be, we're in a 400 feet per minute climb now. So I'm struggling to actually trim the plane out whilst trying to keep on a reasonably good heading. So we're heading in the right direction. One thing that I need to check, sorry, the reason why I'm looking down there is my keyboard is to my left. That's breaking the immersion a little bit. So I just kind of pressed B and D on the keyboard, which sets your barometric pressure to the correct setting, and that's on that dial there. As you can see, it's currently reading 29.9, and obviously the D is correcting the gyro drift, which, if I'm correct, gyro drift is caused by magnetic fluctuations. And what happens as you, and let me get this right, as you move, as you move along the lines of longitude, the magnetic drift on compasses drifts, hence the gyro drift. And as you can see, this aircraft has two compasses. There is the one there just up and to the left of the yoke, and there's the one here on the windscreen. Nearly forgot what that was called then. And they must match. If one of them goes out, there's clearly something very wrong. Actually, I will look that up for the next flight. What could cause one of those compasses to go out? I think one of them is, driven differently. Maybe that's the answer. That's a good quiz question if you was doing an aviation pub quiz. Why do general aviation planes, and I'm sure some of the bigger jets, why do they have more than one compass? I'm sure the answer, or the answer that I would put, is because they're both driven differently. Maybe one's mechanical and one is literally just a magnet in some water, I guess. Go on, Steve, I'm sure you know the answer to that. Why are there more than one compasses on a plane? Okay, so altitude has gone higher than I wanted, so I'll let that run away from me. So I'm just eased the throttle back to 50%. Try and gracefully bring the aircraft down to between 1,000 and 1,500. I'm mindful of the temperature here, cylinder head temperature, but it's all good. All temperature's good. Oil pressure is good. As you can see there from the right fuel tank, it's catching up to the left, so the plane becomes more balanced. That's good. Choppy there actually in the descent, so there's definitely some buffeting here, and that doesn't seem indicative of what the wind speed indicator is showing me on my GPS. It says 271 at 2 knots. Okay. It's a beautiful flight. There's not much traffic in this area today. Maybe everybody is watching Wimbledon at home or in the local pub, or lucky enough to watch Wimbledon at Wimbledon. I'm saving up to go and watch it live one day. Not saving up for the ticket price, of course. I'm saving up for the price of the strawberries and cream and a glass of champagne. It's got to be done, hasn't it? Got to be done. Okay. I knew Steve would have the answer. Magnetic compasses are more susceptible to changes in the Earth's magnetic field, especially near the poles. Gyro compasses can drift over time and require calibration periodically, says Google. Sounds good to me. Right, so the gyro compass then, that's interesting. We start understanding how the instruments work. So we've got the gyro compass, which is clearly, sorry, I had to recalibrate my head tracker there. So gyro compasses, so behind that I guess is a very fast spinning gyroscope. I've just had an audible that the wind is calm. That's interesting. Where did that come from? That must have been from the GPS, I guess. Okay, I'm just mindful I've dropped below 1,000 feet, so I'm just going to apply a bit more power. Give a bit of vertical increase, although it does want to descend, so I'm going to give a bit more power. Maybe a bit of trim as well. What I don't want to do, and you can see the nose rose quite sharply there. And as you can see, we've gone over 400 feet per minute in the climb. That's not what I wanted to do. And the airspeed has dropped as well. So I'm putting myself into quite some situations here. Now, as you see, the nose comes down, the speed will increase. And it's picking up again. So literally hands off. The plane will try and stabilize itself, but it makes for a really uncomfortable ride. And as you can see, the plane is actually going into a left turn. Again, that's not what I want to do. So, and that's just bad piloting. So, you know, I'll put my hands up there. And this actually brings up a really good question, and I'm sure it's debated in many a public house on a Friday and Saturday night after a couple of glasses of your favourite drink. Is flying plane in a flight simulator harder or easier than it would be in real life? Now I need to kind of justify that question, because I'm assuming most people would easily say, don't be silly, of course it's harder to fly a plane in real life than it is in a flight simulator. I'm not so sure about that. Now, I'm not a real world pilot, so I'll gladly discuss this with anybody, especially a real world pilot, and obviously I'll respect their answer. They're real world pilots, so they're used to flying simulators and obviously real aircraft. But I'm just kind of want to quantify that. I think that here I'm not getting any, tangible feedback. If you take kind of driving a car, if I was driving in a game, I'm not getting that feedback from the tyres or the brakes or the steering. I'm kind of applying that to what's going on here. Would I have more sensory inputs flying a plane in the real world? I think I would. Okay, I just literally turned the plane right round, 180 degrees, sorry. And that is a prime indication of me losing my situational awareness by getting carried away by doing something else, whether it's looking at an instrument or talking. And I guess that's why in the real world you have sterile cockpit up to 10,000 feet. Obviously this is not a commercial flight, but I lost situational awareness there because I wasn't paying attention. But let's turn back round, and we're actually extremely close to our coordinates here. Now this is where things can get very interesting very quickly, because I'm going to try and land in a field. Now I did do this successfully a couple of flights ago. Sorry, I've just forgot to do something. Drink some water. But that's not really very clever, was it? Hands off drinking water, which obscured my view from what I was doing. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to bring the plane down to about 1,000 feet. So I guess if I was flying in the real world, yes, I've got permission to do this. I think landing in a field, unless it's an emergency situation, is not acceptable. And I'm a law-abiding person. I don't want to just destroy some farmer's potato crop by landing in their field just because I wanted to. I'm kind of looking around, and one of the things I noticed from before, fields are quite bumpy. They all look pretty smooth from up here, don't they? But I guarantee they're not. I'm sure the farmers would take real insult at that. Disrespecting their nicely ploughed fields. Okay, so need to bring the speed down. I'm looking around. We're still a mile or two away from where I want to be for the attempted landing. Now, I did look on lots of mapping sites to kind of have a look. See over there, look at that. Let me just turn here. Can you see that just at the top of the windshield there? Just coming into that. That looks a beautiful stretch, but on closer inspection, it looks what appears to be a hedgerow right down the middle. So let's fly over that. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to bring 10 degrees of flap in, which will give me a little bit more slow speed control over the aircraft. So that would look, again, it's not very long, is it? So it's kind of an optical illusion, and it looks really nice and flat. The problem is you've got that hedgerow, and there's no way with my skill level that I would be able to land that in that short area. You see, we're just passing over it. Yeah, that's clearly a hedgerow there. The landowner would definitely not be happy with me ploughing through their hedgerow, and actually it'd probably turn the plane over, to be honest, once the propeller hit that. Okay, so let's turn back round. And actually, I think it's really hard to find a field that is long enough to get your plane down that already isn't an established kind of grass runway. As you can see here, there's a road down there to the left. There's heavily forested areas or woods. Beautiful scenery, but yeah, interesting. Okay, so I'm respectful, I am below 1,000 feet. So I don't want to break VFR rules. But these farms, there doesn't look like to be any populated area that would cause me to have a problem. Mindful of my airspeed, very close to stall speed there. Now, it's a pity I can't bring up my mapping software, because we do have some very highly controlled airspace just ahead of us at about our 10 o'clock. I do not want to be going into that airspace. So I'm just going to come over here, turn to the right slightly. I'm just going to bring the flaps up. I'm retracting the flaps. I'm mindful of my airspeed. I do not want to get into a stall situation. I've already had one nasty stall today, and I used up one of my 9 lives. I do think I have some cat DNA, so I'm allowed to say. Steve, if you're still watching, how's the audio levels? Is everything good? I'm just going to bring her over to the left a little bit now. Created a safe distance from the controlled airspace. And actually, if I was a better pilot, I'd know what that danger space was. I think it's the Dartmoor firing ranges. Just having a quick glance at the map. But if you know that part of the world, beautiful place. But yeah, you'll see lots of red flags on the roads and on the fields, and if I'm correct, that denotes there is live firing or military exercises going on. And I definitely don't want to be flying over that area. Let's try and level up a bit here. Hands off. I don't know why I do that. I'm trying to impress you with my skills, just to take my hands off the controls for like 10 seconds. Wow. Do I want a medal? Yeah, a medal would be nice. Okay. Right. Turn left now. We're at a safe distance from the danger area. I'm sure if there is a military exercise going on today, if I did stray too close, I think I'd get a all channels broadcast with my plane identifier, which is as you can see there, Foxtrot Whiskey Foxtrot Delta. So I definitely don't want to be getting a very irate member of the military telling me off. So we can pretty much head south now. And then we can turn more easterly as we circle this proposed landing zone. I don't know why these coordinates were chosen, given that you're very close to a military a section of military controlled airspace. But I do like a challenge. So okay, so I'm also mindful that the fuel tanks probably are going to start becoming imbalanced again. So let me just check whether I need to switch over to the left tank. Yes, I'm going to. I don't want the plane balance running away. I've got enough just to control the plane as it is. Okay, so let's head due south. Pretty good. Due south. Now that's a program. Show my age here. If you've never watched Due South, about a Canadian Mountie and his wolf dog, well worth a watch. Now I want to watch it again. It ran from the early 1990s. So if you can get hold of it on a streaming service, yeah, it's really worth watching. Very good. So yeah, just by my compass heading, I remembered an old TV series I used to watch as a kid, Due South. Okay, so we're getting very close. We're getting very close to where we need to on a landing spot. So the plane is a little bit sluggish on the controls now. I'm mindful of the airspeed. Wind speed is changeable from 220 to 270, so between 2 and 5 knots. So that's actually not helping the situation, because it fluctuates so much. That can give airspeed or take airspeed away. So I'm really mindful of that. And as you can, sorry, let me put my ability to speak back on. As you can see there, the plane is very easily affected by the wind. Now that's interesting, what we spoke about earlier. That wind turbine down there, I would say that's more than 150 feet. And I'm pretty sure they do have, I'm not going to see it now, there it is there. If I crouch down, it's hurting my back. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they have to have illumination. So they can be spotted at night. Or more easily spotted as an obstacle. Right, we need to pretty much turn 90 degrees to the left here. So we're well away from the danger zones anyway, so I'm not going to get into trouble today. Can't guarantee tomorrow, but today I'm not planning on getting into trouble. the other thing I'm mindful of is that river down there. Now that could mean that the fields close to that are very damp or waterlogged. Not a good idea trying to land a plane near to a river. Going a bit quiet now while I get close to coordinates. I will introduce 10 degrees of flat now. Pitch down slightly just to compensate for that. So the coordinates are technically just ahead of us at about our 10 o'clock. So I know it's not near the river, so we're just going to go a little further. Again, mindful of the airspeed. That's interesting. That area there just to the left, it looks like it's on elevated ground, so it's above the river. So I don't think there's a flooding problem. And look at that, it's actually quite long. Now there is a kind of a hedgerow. I'm just looking, you see that there? There is a little hedgerow. It's clearly been worked by plough. So I'm just going to go past. I can turn around. I've mentally logged where that is. Mindful of my speed. I'm just going to trim up a little bit. Actually, the coordinates appear to be just ahead of us. What's that there? That looks quite nice, doesn't it? Quite suitable. It is surrounded by trees, so you kind of, I don't think that's long enough. No. So I'm kind of just flying over it, just getting a feel for no, I wouldn't feel comfortable in this plane landing there. Okay, so see anywhere else at the minute. Let me just get a bit of altitude, so that's going to help make it easier for me to. Okay, so we are getting close to that danger area, so I'm mindful of that. Watching my speed as well, don't want to stall. So the coordinates are literally just here to the left. So if I do a kind of a sharp turn, which I'm going to put the fuel pump on, just to help with my ability to keep the speed control. with the flaps extended. So according to my mapping, the field is literally, we're just flying right over it now. Okay. Don't see anything suitable at the minute. Let me just go out a little bit and then I can turn around. It says it's literally just ahead of us. That looks quite nice there, but it looks, the elevation, and obviously you've got hedgerows. It is there. That's literally the coordinates that I have. Yeah, I'm not too happy attempting to land there. Let's just go out a little bit and I'll turn around. See it from the other side. Let's do a sharpish turn, use a bit of rudder. Yeah, I didn't want to do that, did I? So there it is just below us. Unfortunately, I've climbed up a bit too high. Actually, that looks okay there, doesn't it? See that there? That looks long enough. Do I attempt it? Give it a go. Problem is, to my unskilled eye, there looks lots of suitable places, and when you get down low enough, you realise that there isn't. I mean, there, look, it looks like there's an electricity pylon there. Last thing I want to do is hit an electric pylon or a cable. Let's turn around. A little bit of rudder, watching my airspeed. Where was that field? Where was it? I think it's there, isn't it? You see, from here it just doesn't look long enough. Is it this one? I think it was. Too high and too fast, I think. Yeah, I don't think that's long enough. We can take a flyover. Oh, and the other thing, I got to be honest, this was real life, you know. There could be a public footpath there. I don't want to upset somebody walking their dog by trying to land a plane. Okay. Just retracting the flaps, just to get a bit of speed and altitude. But again, you see there, just that field there looks good. I mean, it's okay landing, but you've got to make sure you've got enough flat space to take off again. And obviously, looking at the undulation here, it's not really flat ground, is it? Not level. I'm mindful that I'm really low to the ground here. See, again, that looks nice, but I just don't think I've got the skill to land in such a, what I think is a short distance. Okay, all these local residents and farmers probably are getting a bit concerned about this plane that's flying over. See, again, that looks a nice area. You know, I'm going to look at that one. In real life, yes, I'd make a phone call to my administrator and say, hey, look, can you find out who owns this land? And ask them if I can land my plane there. I'm just kind of watching my speed. Speed is really low. Okay, so at some point I need to call it because, yeah, I knew that was going to happen. Sorry, I didn't know that was going to happen. That was a bit of a fabrication there. So when I say I knew that was going to happen, what I meant was just my luck. Okay, can I land the plane here? That looks a really nice and doable distance. You know what? I know there's a clump of trees there, but and obviously there is a road and a farm. I'm going to attempt that. What I'll do, I'll leave the flaps retracted for a minute, get a little bit of distance, and I'll turn around. See, even here, that looks a nice area there, just passing over. Actually, I quite like the look of that. That's really long, reasonably flat, isn't it? You know what, I'm going to have a go there first. I'm trying to log all these. That looks just like a little dirt track, so it looks flat. I like the look of that one. Let's go, let's have a go at that. Okay, let's extend the flaps to 10. Sorry, the head tracker is slightly given a Is this it? Yeah. Let me see if I can land it here. Okay. Coming in a bit aggressive. I might have to abort and go around, but that's okay. Do this? Nope. Got the stall warning. Wasn't good. Okay. The wind was good. It all felt good. Come back round. So we're heading 150. So I need to turn to 330. Stabilise the plane. Okay, just dropping off the speed. Flaps down. Turn back to 330. What I don't want to do is lose right to that field. There it is there. Okay, so we've got some trees. We have got those buildings down there. Those look like residences, I think. This may not be a good idea. I'm very respectful. I don't want to upset somebody. Yeah. Let's see if I can do this. Oh, stop. That was, got my pulse racing. Why didn't the plane stop? I had the brakes on. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to end the stream here, because I think it's been 2.5 hours, 2 hours of flight time. So I really appreciate you watching if you've stayed with me throughout the stream. On that note, you know, I wish you a wonderful rest of the weekend wherever you are. Please feel free to comment about anything about the stream, good or bad. I'll always take criticism if it's justifiable. And I will be setting up the second part of the stream, because I wanted to do a session in ARMA III. But I'm mindful I need to go and refill my water container and stretch my legs as well, you know, health and safety. And I hope to join you in a future live stream. So on that note,